go live. There we go. Okay. Let me tweet out the stream real quick. I don't know why this isn't letting me do that. Let's see. What is going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Clocking Out. I'm your host, PR the King of Hearts, and today I have Rob Messer here. Rob, how are you doing?
I'm great, man. Really, really happy to be here. Thank you for the invite. Thanks for being patient with me. Just really happy to be here. I've been really rooting you on, and you're crushing, my man.
I
Love
really
to see it.
appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time, man. I really do. I'm actually kind of embarrassed. I don't know why this is all acting up right now. Today's the worst day to be acting up because,
So,
like, no
dude,
honesty, I always look at your podcast like for references and as like a blueprint of how I can, do podcasting and everything like that. I always try to, improve on what I'm doing. And I always use, how you ask questions and how you interact with your guests and everything as an example of, how to improve and how to be a better podcaster myself. So this is actually pretty embarrassing. I don't know why everything is starting to act up today out of all days.
I appreciate you saying that, but like it's just technology. You can't have it any other way.
Exactly. So before we get into anything, I've met you through the VFriends community. You have your own podcast yourself, the VFam Sessions, and you also have the VFam After Dark, correct?
Yeah, the VFM Network,
The VFam Network, yes.
Twitch channel.
And before we get into anything about VFriends, can you please introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background of who Rob is for anyone? I doubt it, but for anyone who's tuning in who doesn't know who you are and know what you're doing and know what you're about, can you give us a brief description and background of who Rob Messer is?
Yeah. So I am a father, brother, son. I've been a teacher for um, about 10, 11 years now. I've left teaching and went back 2 or 3 times in the last 5 years. Uh, Always been like a hustler kid since my early elementary, middle school days. I've always loved a good flip. I'm like a futurist with entrepreneur tendencies, as Gary would say. Um, Fell in love with, you know, being able to connect with people at an early age through tennis has always been a part of my life. So I kind of realized that I was able to connect people and build a rapport when I was younger, giving tennis lessons. That fell into, college. I'll fast forward through college and everything. Ended up finding education, connecting with kids that way, and did elementary school for like 8, 9 years, and really liked it. Didn't love the ecosystem, still don't. So I've been kind of bouncing back between the education system and trying to do my own thing, working for startups, try to get my own stuff off the ground for a while. So all at the same time building a family. I have three young kids. We have my wife Chelsea, who you know, who's been on this show, who everyone knows that's probably watching this. Yeah, we have 2 1-year-olds and a 5-year-old, so it's balancing that with big ambitions. And yeah, I found this VFriends community, and a few years ago wanted to kind of put a flag in. At the same time, wasn't sure what I was doing. So Gary V was screaming like, start a podcast. And I did. I just saw where this was going and I wanted to be a part of it. And So, document, don't create. I started the VFAM sessions almost 2 years ago to the day from when we're recording this. And yeah, it's just kind of like what you said before we went off the air. It's just finding something that can hold you accountable to help you, get out of your comfort zone, learn new skills, meet new people. The the notion of hosting the party was always big. Gary Vee says that a lot. I lived it. I grew up in a predominantly single parent household my whole life. So I threw, my mom worked nights. I threw a lot of parties, and I like when he says like, I don't know if you've ever heard him talk about host of the party, but the host of the party rule is that if you're the one hosting the party, your popularity increases like a whole letter grade. So if you're like a B+ kid, you turn into an A+ kid, C-, B-. So I felt that, I lived that. So that hit me when he said that. So which pushed me to do the podcast, which pushed me to host events. So yeah, I'm just kind of enjoying my time. I really while I'm figuring my stuff out, just trying to like, my profile says striving to be a Hall of Fame dad. I'm really trying to keep that first and foremost and kind of put everything second. But at the same time, like I do have big ambitions to do things. So that's probably there's a lot there.
But I love it. I love
There's
it.
a lot for me, I guess.
Yeah, you got a lot going on. And even when I spoke to your wife, Chels, she explained a lot how both of you basically share that same ambition and same hustle and drive about always just wanting to do better, always wanting to improve, learn something new, and just keep moving forward. I love how both of you just you're equally balanced in the sense that both of you back each other up and both of you have the same goals in the sense of always just wanting to strive to do better. And if there's an opportunity to improve, you guys do your best to do it and you push each other towards whatever it is that you have. Like if she's mentioned how if you want to go to a show or if there's a certain seminar or there's an event or something going on, she doesn't stop you from going. She pushes you, she motivates you, you guys make it work. And when it comes to being parents and having a relationship with somebody, it's to me, I think it's just amazing that both of you are content creators and both of you are into this and you share similar interests and you're both, in the community of VFriends and you taking that journey together. I when I started getting into VFriends and everything myself, I found it pretty difficult to share that journey with anybody, period, whether it was friends or someone close to me in a relationship or anything like that. So when I found you guys and I saw that, you guys are actually a couple and you're married and, you have kids, and to see that you guys are doing all of that and still balancing the time to put in the effort of creating content and reaching out and being as active as you guys are in the community, I love that, which is why I wanted to really learn more about you guys so I can learn from your firsthand experiences and what made your bond so strong and how you guys are able to just, no matter what, you're able to find a common ground with each other, and what I want to ask you first is, can you share a little bit about your journey from being a teacher and how you went from teaching to becoming to starting your own podcast and being a host and a content creator? Like, how did that all come about? Because you mentioned how, you did teaching, but you jumped back and forth from it. Like, is there a specific reason for it? Like, were you falling in and out of love with it? Or when you teach, is it a specific, grade or topic or category that you stick to, or are you a teacher of like many different subjects and categories?
Yeah. So I guess I'll back it up. So when I went to school, um, out of college, out of undergrad, I thought I wanted to be in publicity, like marketing and PR. Um, so I love the movies. I wanted to be in the movie industry. And right, my good buddy was already in the industry. So right out of the gate in New York City, we lived up in Connecticut. I got two really awesome internships right out of the gate. Like right away, I was on first base. So I got thrown into that really quick. And at first I was like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. I get to go to all these parties, work with all of these, famous people. And like the longer I did it, I was like, this isn't the best. mind you, I was taking the train from Connecticut, 2-hour train ride every morning from Connecticut to New York. I wasn't being paid anything. So at some point I was like, man, I don't have that many expenses, but I'm partying a lot. I like to have a little bit of money.
Exactly.
So I had to get a job. So 1 day a week I started substitute teaching. And I started to do that, liked it. Like I said, I taught tennis lessons. I connected with kids. So it was natural for me to be in the classroom. Before you know it, then I was doing subbing 2 days a week, and I cut back on the interning. And before I knew it, I was subbing 5 times a week. I left the internships, went back to grad school for elementary education. So I ended up getting working 8 years in third grade after I got my degree, my master's degree, and just really like third grade. It was a really nice sweet spot because the kids were developing a sense of humor and can understand like sarcasm and things like that, but they didn't hate school yet. Like they weren't there. They still enjoyed learning. So it was this real nice sweet spot. So I fell in love with third grade. But the ecosystem is just the worst. And I have a lot of uh mixed emotions about going to work every day. Like I love connecting with the kids, but at the same time, it's hard to block out like the bureaucracy and just like the overall like what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like with the testing, with the just the indoctrination in some cases, and then teachers, the adults they can be totally generally speaking, it's a toxic place. There's a lot of unhappy teachers there. They're caught up in oh man, it's Monday, can't wait till Friday type of lifestyle. And then that's kind of doubled down on that because you're counting down to the summer where you get this little break, which is nice, and you get to recharge your batteries. But like it's just the secular wheel of being unhappy in so many cases. So I really, like I said, I always was kind of trying to do side businesses on the side. I knew I didn't want to teach forever. So we got into some businesses. But ultimately, yeah, we got some traction with a business we were doing. It was kind of a direct to consumer, like MLM, which is a whole other story. But we found one that we really liked, reputable company, and we worked hard at it. Like I'd come home from school, and Chelsea and I would do it together, and we'd go teach. That it was an essential oil company, so they did natural products, and I'd get home from school, and we'd like pack the car and like go do a class and teach people and sell, and we did that for like 5 years. So at some point, our business was to the point where like I left. I was like, I just had a bad year, and I was like, I'm done with this, just because I saw how unhappy so many people were. I just didn't want that for myself. So left. Ultimately, felt called back to the classroom. I was teaching in like an upper middle class area. We moved down to Charleston, where we live now, and I saw an opportunity to kind of lock in insurance again and a steady paycheck and work on the other side of the tracks in the inner city. And that lasted for a year and a half before it was just too much for me. Totally draining and toxic, and just an emotional baggage like you wouldn't believe, working in that kind of environment. So left that. I was like, at that point, I was like doing this Web3 thing. VeeFriends was off and running, doing this Web3 thing, or I'm going to do this entrepreneurship thing, started my own marketing outfit locally, and started to do that. That's when I started the VFAM sessions. And as I was starting to really dig in, I got a job working in Web3 doing marketing. And then I got another job on top of that. And then I was like, all right, this money's coming in now. Like maybe I don't need to like focus on my thing so much because I was getting paid and, had kids. And eventually that dried up because that crazy bull market turned to a bear. So, first it was cutting back pay, and then I slipped away. So, long story short, I, rather than hustling, at that point, because I got bills, I got 3 kids. I was like, let me just go back to the comfort thing. I put on my comfort blanket on and went back to school for my third round, which I'm in now, which I'm doing middle school like tech classes, which
Nice.
I'm not like, I'll just say it right now, like I'm just doing it for the money. Like I like connecting with the kids, but it's just a job and something that I'm like good at, comes natural to me, and it is what it is.
So when you say that you started getting into like hustling and doing your own like businesses and things like that, and then you got back into the comfort zone of going back to like a regular 9 to 5 job being a teacher, a lot of people tend to think like one is easier than the other. With your experience of having been in both worlds, and you basically you're saying, because it's true, like you're not the first teacher I've talked to. I've talked to another person who I've had on the podcast, Tim Livingston from Living Bots, what used to be Vector Bots, and he's a teacher also, and he shared the same exact thing where he says his main thing is he loves being with the kids, but he also feels like it turns into something else, whether it's parents feeling like their kids are entitled, or it just becomes something where it's not really about teaching or learning. He starts feeling like everything just seems very different, and it's more about like, you know it's all about grades and testing, like you mentioned, and he feels like it kind of dilutes like the whole connection that he has with kids, and it kind of gets to him also as well. And he's also mentioned that sometimes he sees that, like what you said also, like a lot of teachers get overwhelmed with what they have to do or what they have to deal with on a daily basis, or the lack of stuff that they have to be able to do their daily duties as a teacher, and help guide kids in the right path of learning the right thing that they need to do, and just showing them that there's more than one way of doing things. And it gets pretty frustrating because sometimes with the way things are now, a lot of people don't tend to look at it that way. They look at it, it's just go to school, take the test, get the grade, get out. And he tries to turn it into something more fun, more like memorable.
Mm.
But he says it like sometimes he feels like he's falling out of love with it. Like the same reasons he got into it, he's starting to see that it's something that he can't really focus on anymore because of the way that the environment is in the teaching world. So he's also looking and also trying to like find his way out of that. And he mentions how sometimes he feels like he's stuck because of, it's just like anybody else with a regular job. We get stuck in the 9 to 5 loophole because of the fact that, we have bills, we have kids, and we have to worry about those things. And sometimes we put our passions and dreams on the back burner. But you're sitting here and you're finding ways to, no matter what, make it work, even if you have to bounce back and forth. But from your firsthand experience, what do you think is easier? Because sometimes when people hear like, oh, you have to have a side hustle, you have to start a business, and a lot of them tend to get overwhelmed just by the thought of the steps that they need to take to do that they don't even try to take those steps. So instead they just automatically go back to the comfort zone of, let me just go for a 9 to 5 job and collect a check, when it's to the point where, like you're mentioning, like it's really clear from your podcast and the way you speak and the way that you go about things that it shows. Your experience as a teacher shows, like your patience with people, the way you ask questions, the way you listen, the way that you execute things. And it's like you're saying now, like you go back and it's basically just to work and just to make sure that you're getting by. What do you think is more difficult for a person to do? To really find that thing to keep them going and deal with the regular 9 to 5? Or do you think it's more difficult to start a business and start a side hustle and stay more dedicated to that? Because you even mentioned like when you were younger, you liked, trying to, do your own thing and find your own way. So it seems like it's in you, it's in your DNA, like it's second nature to you. You know what I'm saying? Do you think it's easier to do that, or do you think it's easier to go the route of working a 9 to 5 and dealing with that, even though that it's something you kind of don't really feel like you have that real intention of wanting to do it that much anymore?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's very contextual to everyone's situation because, like, like when it was when we had one kid, I was like, all right, fuck it, like I could go out and flip and go to the Goodwill bins 3, 4 days a week, and like this is the number I need to hit on eBay sales, and then I'll do like something else. Maybe someone will, I'll get like a consulting gig. Maybe I'll get this, maybe I'll do some freelance writing, but we threw 2 more kids in like that. And we're living in a place where, like, in a bigger city, and prices are going crazy. So at that point, it was just like shit. Like, we bit off more than we could chew. Like, I'm going back. So
No, don't worry about it.
it's easier for me to know that, okay, this is what's coming, and I can do the passion project for it to be the passion project, rather than like, I'm gonna do the passion project and we need to hit this amount of money. Because like our last year has been bananas, like absolutely bananas. So to do the passion project, to piecemeal all of these side hustles together when it's not a sure thing, plus to have the energy to do everything, is bananas. So in in 2023, 2024, like, it has been like, I'm just going to take the job, I'm going to make the most of it, and I'll have the energy. I can conserve this energy to really go at something that I want to build, rather than just spreading myself super thin. But there's situations where, like, if you're skilled and you're talented, you can go out there and hunt, and you know crush it. And maybe I'll get there. Like, I we're just talking to Chelsea the other day about, like, going at something for the second time around, but now I'm more thoughtful, learning from the mistakes the first time around, and maybe I'll do it. But I'm in a place where I just don't give a fuck. Like, I'll leave teaching. I'll leave teaching in whenever again, if it means I'm happier and we can do it. I'm just not going to leave prematurely, financially.
I
Like I
get
did
you.
last time, just because, all right, been there, done that.
I hear you. And how has being a father and a husband influenced your work and your content creation process?
To do it as efficiently as possible.
And do you feel like it's because like I mentioned before, sometimes it's me, and when I record and everything like that, sometimes I overthink it. If it's not thinking about being a dad or a boyfriend or someone or a son or a brother or a friend, like I always overthink when it comes to creating content and putting myself out there, because I honestly, instead of me worrying about making a fool of myself and people judging me, I always worried about making a fool of myself or not presenting myself properly and having other people be embarrassed or overthink about letting people know that they're associated with me or that they know me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I always think, like, if I do a podcast, like, I always try to keep it so separate from my personal life and my personal profiles and everything. Just because in the beginning, when I tried to do it one way, I always find that there are some people that don't get it, or some people who are very judgmental, or they don't take it seriously and they turn it into a joke. And I'm the type of person, like, especially when I'm trying to start something new, it weighs heavy on me when someone says something like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And, "Oh, are you taking that serious?" Or if I do something and they go and tell that person like, "Oh, that's your friend or that's your cousin." Like, I always mention this to people, and I always try to get someone else's perspective from their point of view. Like, have you ever come at a point where anytime that you're doing something, you kind of second guess or you hold back because you feel like not embarrassed, but you overthink about how anyone else is going to take it or how they're going to, react, or what it may seem like to other people when you're trying to make an effort doing something that they might not understand? Do you ever feel like sometimes that kind of holds you back, or have you gotten to the point where you just really don't care about any of that? And if so, like, how do you get to that level?
Yeah. So I totally get what you're saying, because I used to live it all the time. It just it's been a while since I have cared. So the answer is no, I don't give a fuck anymore.
I love it.
Um, how did I get there? That's the more important question. So the turning point. So I mentioned that when I was, uh, we started a business, a direct selling business. which a lot of people jump jump into. It's known to be full of oil snake salesmen. People promise you like, oh, you're gonna have passive income the rest of your life. Sell these freaking stretchy pants, and you're gonna be a millionaire. There's a lot of that. I had an experience where a product actually worked for me. Like I felt it, and I was the most skeptical because my mom had a new company every 18 months growing up. So I was very skeptical. I had a product that worked for me, and one of my best friends was doing it with his wife. Long story short, got in. Chelsea was extremely against it. She had her experience to kind of pull her in, and she's like, Chelsea, when she does something, she goes all in. She's like, all right, fuck it, I'm quitting my job, I'm doing this, and we'll do this together. So with that, you can't just snap fingers and oh, now you can sell, now you can be confident to do this. Exactly. And the way direct selling works, you have now it's a lot of virtual stuff since COVID, but before, we were going to people's houses, all referral based, friends of friends of friends. We're going to people's houses where we called them classes, where we would give a little presentation, and then essentially sell them at the end of the presentation. And we're walking into people's living rooms that we don't know. So there was a lot of personal development that went into that, and experiences where we were you just have to hold your breath, snap your fingers, and just break through that. But we did a lot. We did Tony Robbins. I read a lot. I was reading a lot of books, and you just kind of level up. And the old adage, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yes.
And at a certain point, it's okay, a lot of my high school friends, they're not serving me anymore. So what am I gonna what other choice you have? I'm not gonna cater to them anymore. I'm getting older, so you just kind of break through. But it's a muscle that you have to work to believe in yourself, and just I mentioned, we walked into people's houses, we're the people, we're the spotlight, we got to own that. So it's it's a muscle, and if people sense that you're overthinking things or nervous, no, you're not making a sale, you're not gonna change people's lives and get them off of a medication that's hurting them, or at least opening their eyes to alternatives. This is a natural health thing I was talking about. But yeah, it's just work. It's just working that muscle.
I hear you. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's one of those things that it's just becoming comfortable being uncomfortable, and the more that you do it, it just becomes second nature. It took me a while to do that also. Not only with podcasting, with reaching out to people, trying to become more active and more involved in the community. And it's a lot about I think it's a lot of things that are in our head. We overthink things, and we come up with these excuses, and we make up these fake scenarios that probably won't even happen or don't even exist. And
exactly.
I agree with you, but it does take a lot. I've done that also myself. I've done the whole thing where I go to people's houses, and I've tried to pitch them and sell them things. And, I've from going door to door sales for Verizon, or I used to do Amway. I don't know if you know what Amway is. I did Amway for a while. Yeah. And I building your legs and all that crap. And, I learned. It was all stuff that was intriguing to me. And again, it's like you said, the whole snake oil salesman thing, where people sit there and they tell you, you could do this if you just do this, and you can make this much. And when you're in a position not of being desperate, but just you're really hopeful to find something that works because you're interested in it, or you have a passion for just, trying to hustle and grind and make something out of nothing. I believe a lot of us always just look for that one person that's willing to give us the opportunity, despite how shady or it may look. We just take it because we believe in ourselves that we can make the most out of whatever situation. So, I do understand where you're coming from when it comes to that. And, after trying to start your businesses and having businesses that worked and learning from them and getting that, hands-on experience and really, putting your feet to the ground and putting in that work and those miles of, putting those roads behind you of what you did and what you accomplished. How was it that you started leading up to doing podcasting and wanting to take that route? Like, what was your first thing that, told you, besides for Gary coming up, or was it Gary that mentioned it and that was the first time you ever thought of it, or was it something that you kind of were thinking about before that and it was just, him saying that gave you that push, or how did that come up? What was the beginning stages of the VFam sessions?
Beginning stages of the VFam sessions were, it was I wasn't working. I'd left because I thought I was gonna make $1 million. No, I started, actually, this is fun. I started a podcast that a little bit, maybe a month or so before the VFam session started, maybe a couple months, called After School. And I was going to interview former teachers that left school to start businesses. And I actually interviewed 3, and I never put any out because what I wanted to do was start my own kind of like marketing consulting thing. I'm like on all of those tests where you learn about yourself. I'm number 1 is ideator for me. So I'm an idea guy, and number 2 is futuristic. So I'm like seeing where the end is, and I can reverse engineer back. Those are my 2 natural strengths. So I was like, man, let me just do this. I can help people with their socials, and I'll figure out, like, I want to be a social media manager, but I consult them, give them the ideas, and then do the content management and stuff. So I was like, let me just start this, and I'll figure out social. So I was going to do a podcast to kind of learn, kind of like we were talking about. I don't know why I slowed down with that, but at some point I was like really feeling FOMO about VFriends because I didn't have the money for a V1. And I was like, man, I fucking love this. Like I was meeting people in the community, and I was like, I know Gary's going to win because he always does. And this just makes so much sense. Totally bought into the blockchain stuff. And I was like, man, this community is full of nice people. Like the community is going to do the community and VFriends are going to like go back and forth in parallel and just like do amazing things. I was like, this is gonna be special. He's screaming about Disney. I was like, and in all of his stuff, he's like, document, don't create, start a podcast, jump on LinkedIn. So all at the same time, I shifted my podcast focus to do VFam sessions because I wanted something. I wanted a piece of it to be mine because I felt left out because I didn't have a V1. Even though you don't need to, everyone knows you don't need a V1, but
100%.
I still felt like I needed something to feel closer to the flame of the VFriends community. So I started that, and I started writing articles on LinkedIn, and so just started DMing people, hey, I'm doing this VFam sessions podcast. A whole bunch of people didn't reply. Some people said no, but one person said yes, then another person, and then another person. So and it just went from there. And if you look back, I think I fucked up the first video. So the first video doesn't exist of episode number 1, and number 2, 3, 4, they're all like shit. Like I have like a little whiteboard in the back, kind of like Gary did. If you've ever seen Wine Library, I think I was like paying homage to him there. And I just started figuring it out, and then I was like, all right, I'm gonna make this into a book, which is kind of like my overarching plan to make an oral history book of the first of this time, told through the perspectives of everyone living it from the community and the team. Yeah, and it just built. And I like, if you really look back, and people that have been following for a while know, like I've taken like 2023, I didn't put out anything from like the end of maybe the winter to like October. Like it was dead. My twins were born. I was wondering where we were gonna get like money for bills. Like a lot was going on to the
Yeah.
point where like I had recorded episodes. Wasn't even like posting them just because I was all like, like clogged up my bandwidth. So yeah, that's a long answer for how VFam sessions started.
No, I get you though, but still, it's basically you were just rolling with it. You had an idea, you started it, and you just rolling with the punches. And I've been in the same position too. I started clocking out. My very first episode that I put out of clocking out was in December of 2019, and
Yeah.
then every day after that, I like originally what I wanted to do. It's like you mentioned, I just wanted to document my journey, and the whole idea of it at first was me documenting my journey of clocking out of my job that I hated and trying to focus on, just finding my way of making my passion a career or doing something with it where I didn't have to worry about a job no more. And the more and more that I did it, the more and more I had no idea what I was doing. No one would tune in, and then I would start second guessing in the sense of like, oh, like no one's gonna tune in, so why am I gonna go on here? What if I mess up? What if I do this? And then it just got in my head like, yo, no one's tuning in. This is like the best time to just keep posting stuff because I don't have to think about it. No one's there.
Yeah.
Like, what does it matter? And the more and more that I did that, the more I started, just it started turning into something else because every once in a while someone would show up, and when someone did show up, they would show interest, like, oh, can I be on? And at first it was just like you, like I had one person show interest on wanting to be on, and then I started reaching out to other people, like, oh, if this person wants to do it, everyone's gonna want to do it. And I got really discouraged because it's just like you said, like, I reached out to many people too, and some people didn't even answer. Some people blocked me. Some people reported me for spam. Like I went through all those motions of like just learning, and it was something that I've never done before. I thought it was going to be as easy, like in person, when you just go up to someone like, hey, you want to hang out or you want to talk, and they're like, yeah, cool. And it wasn't like that. It took me a while to really understand that the internet and interacting with people on the internet was a little bit different. And I did this before even trying to get involved in the VFriends space, as far as like letting people in the VFriends community know what I was doing, because I felt like I had to build it up to be something bigger before I even let anyone know in the community what I was doing. Because the last thing I wanted to do was try to get someone on and they look at it like, bro, you only got 5 episodes and no one's ever been on. Why would I want to be on? Or you don't have any content, or you just started, like you don't even know what you're doing, and you don't, because at first I didn't have nothing neither. I didn't know what I was doing. I literally just used regular overlays and stuff that were literally meant for like video games. Like my logo, I still haven't changed it, and it looks like some superhero type of cape thing. Like it's like all over the place. So it's like it took me a while to try to find the identity of it, find the theme, the idea. Like I had an idea of it, of what I wanted in my mind, but the way that I was going about it, I felt like I was all over the place. But at the same time, I kind of felt like, as much as it was unorganized, I still felt like every day I was doing at least one thing right. And I didn't really overthink of it too much, just because of the fact, again, I looked at it like, yo, no one's paying attention. And the few people that were, like, they really didn't care. They were just there, they were hanging out. And the more time I put into it, the more it started evolving to something else. And it's like you mentioned, like I started seeing that there was potential there. There was something there, especially when I started, letting people in the VFriends community know. And I started seeing like, yo, I can actually use the people who are willing to be supportive and willing to give feedback and are actually, like you said, like they're nice. The VFriends community was like a blessing in disguise, because it's just chock full of people that are actually willing to give a shit. Like they'll give you the time of day. And sometimes you might not hear what you want to hear, but they're going to tell you what you need to hear in order to just either improve or to just get a wake up call, I guess. And like, yo, like there's some things you got to work on, and I needed that, because in the beginning there was a few people that, just to be nice, like, yeah, it's great, it's this. And then yourself when you're doing something right or wrong and you need to fix things. And sometimes we don't like to admit it, and it does take another person to, like, shed some light on it and tell us like, look, you got to kind of check yourself and fix this before you go any further, because it's not working out. So I it's not easy, you know. So you saying that, it actually makes me feel a lot better, because in all honesty, like I said, I look at you, for example, because I like the way you do your podcast. I like the way that you go about the conversations and everything like that. And I try my best to learn from other people, because I don't have anyone physically around me in person that is into the same thing, that we share similarities, and whether it's Web3, NFTs, or the community and all that, you know. So it's hard to find someone to bounce ideas off of, or to get a good point of view from the other side. Like, look, you know, this worked for me, this didn't work for me. So, you know, it takes some time to go through those mistakes and
Of
those
course,
little things, you
like
know.
anything.
Yeah. So what approach of hosting different, like, well, what happened, like, or like what made you take the approach of hosting different versions of your podcast? Because you don't only just host in the sense of having a guest and asking them questions. You've done your trivia shows, you've done your dating shows, where I've been a part of it also, which I love. So what is it that inspired you to kind of like just put a little twist on it and add these different things like to your podcast, instead of keeping it specifically about VeeFriends, or specifically about interviewing people? Like, what was it that inspired that?
Um, it came from a lot of places. So, number one, there, I've gotten a lot of feedback on, people say nice things about the podcast. The people that are really, and that there's night, and you probably know this. There's like generic things, and then there's feedback you get when people are really paying attention, or they've really listened. Um, I've gotten a lot of feedback from people I respect a lot, that are wondering, they love the format, they love my direction, they love my vision, but they're wondering why, like it's not like blowing up. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about that, and I'm not like, I don't spend and this is all on me. Like, I don't spend a ton of time like cutting up shorts. I do the best I can. um you know I've gone through the avenues of like trying to hire people out to like help me like bang out the 3 pieces of content a day, the whole thing. So I don't amplify it as much as possible, but at the same time, like, we're still early. Like, a lot of people don't know about VeeFriends, let alone the history, the very early history of VeeFriends.
Uh-huh.
So like it is what it is for now. Like, I'm just documenting. Comma, there's an amazing group of people here, and they're attentive and they're engaged and they're amazing. And I was kind of looking at the landscape, and most of the programming, most of the shows are transactional, right? You have Fanatics Live, love Fanatics Live, but it's, if there's nothing to be sold, that show wouldn't exist. Same
100%.
thing for To the Moon. Same thing for Josh. And I was like looking for the white space, as Gary says a lot. And I was like, we're longing for something, for a place to go where you can be educated and entertained without someone asking you to put in a credit card. So
Yes.
I wanted to create that. And this whole notion of VFam, I just kind of ran with. And I was like, Gary was talking about Twitch a lot. I was like, let me just do it. And before I even thought too much about it, because if I thought too much about it, it wouldn't happen, or just be put in the shelf with the 4,000 other things. So I
100%.
started that, and then I was like, just went back to the basics. What do people like, and what do I like to do? And one of the greatest jobs I ever had was I worked at a tennis camp for 10 summers. I went summer camp I went to as a kid. One of the best tennis camps in the country. Like, people flying from all around the world, like NFL owners, daughters, huge brand, like, I won't drop the name, but like huge brand owners, or founders, kids go there. Like, really nice camp. And one of the reasons that it was so successful was that we really focus on the social aspect just as much as the tennis during the day. So they do all their shit in the day, training, all of that bullshit. And then at night, like, we'd have a movie night, we'd have a swim night. with pizza. But it all built up to the end of the week where we had a dance night.
Nice.
These are 13, 14, 15-year-old kids. Like,
Yeah,
what they want to do.
exactly.
And at the beginning of before the dance night, the opening hour to before the dance night while the DJ was setting up was a dating game. And I hosted it for years. So like, the counselors and I would have like our few beers in the dorm. This was in the dorms. We'd have a few beers and I'd go out there and just have a blast hosting the dating game for these 13 to 18-year-old kids. So I was like, well, I could do that on stream again. So I just did it. And I was really blown away by how many people, first of all, answered like my survey where I asked them for this being an internet thing.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, all right, people are down. And it was a blast. So and part of me thinks every day, like maybe I just do that full time.
Yeah, I loved it. I'm going to tell you right now, as a person who was a part of it, I loved it. I didn't expect any of the way that it went down, but it was surely creative. I sure took a lot of notes. I enjoyed it. It was the first time I was ever a part of something like that. And, one of the main reasons that I wanted to be a part of it was because it really sparked my curiosity. I've never, like, you always think of dating shows, and I thought of it in one way, but then the more and more I thought of it, I was like, all right, but how's he gonna do this on stream and live? Like, so I was curious. I was like, yo, the only way I'm really gonna learn is, one, if I tune in, and two, I might as well just get in there and get, one, I've never, like I said, I've never done that. And I was like, I'd break out of my comfort zone a little bit and put myself out there. And at the same time, it was just really fun. But it was a learning experience also, because it showed me what was possible, especially like you said, when because one thing that I was scared about was, one, I was like, one, no one's gonna want to either match with me, or two, what if no one shows up, in the sense of like, I kept feeling that there was gonna be a higher ratio of guys than girls. So I was like, what if that happens?
100%.
Yeah, and I was like, what if that happens? And then like it just comes down to, okay, well, there's no one left for you. So what are you gonna? And then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna feel embarrassed. So what if like no one, like they see it's me and they don't even want to be in it no more or something? So it's like all those things came into play. And then I started wondering, but how is he gonna do it where they don't know, and like it's like a behind the curtain type of thing? And
Yeah.
so the way that you went about it was really creative. It was perfectly executed. I loved it. I had a blast. I know still to this day, there's people that, not even in the chat or in the community, that even now and then in DMs, just one-on-one, we talk about it and we laugh about it because of like things happen. Miami Mike with his Miami slide and all that. Like there were so many moments that were created because of that turned into like core memories for people, that I just love it. You know what I mean? It became its own little like side VCon type of event thing that I'm pretty sure that everyone's going to remember, because it was in that I know of, it was like the first of its kind when in the community, or even that I've seen in stream. I haven't seen anybody else or any other content creators go about it in the way that you did. So it was great. I really loved it,
I appreciate that. And it was so fun. Like at the end of the day, like what we're doing has to be fun. But like it went like, there was no disasters.
Yeah.
And going into starting the network, like I thought that would be a good like kickoff. But I was just gonna try a whole bunch of stuff. Like I'm doing the trivia. I was doing like a newlyweds thing for married people. That's not so hot. I'm not getting a lot of people that want to do that. But dating game was good. And like, for me, like the cards are great. Like we've seen the impact of the cards.
Yes.
Both financially for VeeFriends and how many people it's brought. But I'm like, what's more universal than like someone that is looking for somebody trying to find someone else in this great community we have, like this little nice environment where you can weed out a lot of the weirdos. Obviously not everybody.
Yes.
It's still like, we're still in the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
You could still do whatever, but if you're sticking around here long enough, you're drinking the Gary Kool-Aid, you're drinking the kindness juice, you're more than likely a good person. So like, why not start there if you're going to start picking from the dating pool?
True.
So the more I spent working on it, the more I liked the idea. And yeah, it was just a ton of fun, and the kind of programming that I wanted on the VFam network.
Yeah, no, I loved it, and I actually appreciate that you did that because again, it's to say that I haven't thought of it, because even when I first went to VCon and I got introduced to that and I met all these amazing people, the first thing that popped in my head, especially when I went to my first VCon, which was last year's, the first thing that popped in my head when I got there, I saw so many couples that it didn't really click in my head that I was like, damn, why didn't I think of bringing somebody? But at the same time, I was like, I have nobody to bring. So that's the stupidest thing to think about. But I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if I met somebody that's in this community, that's like-minded, that's into this, that's, that you don't have to onboard someone. Because anytime that I bring up VeeFriends, NFTs, or the community or anything, there's so many. I guess everyone has like their own version of it, of course, for there's still so many people that are not well educated enough to know what blockchain is or what NFTs are, that when you mention it, automatically they just think spam, or I mean they just think scam. They don't want to give it the time of day where they're like, you know what, there's actual potential in this, or this actually makes sense, or this could be used in many different ways. They just look at it like it's a money grab. You're going to go in, flip your money, whatever, and they don't even really give it an opportunity. Or they hear Gary Vee and they just think, oh, it's just a guy that's always yelling, saying, yeah, fuck your grandma and all this other crap. Like, you know what I mean? So they don't really give it that chance to really see that there's more to it than just that. Because in all honesty, after being introduced to VeeFriends, I kind of just forgot about Gary. I just focused on the people in the community and
Yeah.
how and the value they bring and how they make you feel, Yes, Gary's the main core part of it, but I feel like he created something that right now, if he was to walk away from it, it'd still be there. The community's still going to keep running. People would still keep reaching out to each other, supporting each other. I don't think that even if VeeFriends or the brand or whatever was to shut down or close or end, I don't think that would stop the community that you built, and To The Moon and Josh's stream and like all that. I feel like they've all created their own little following that all started from VeeFriends, that no matter what happens, I feel like it's always going to be around. And like the things that you guys done, there's not going to be, there's no replacing it. Like I said, you guys created things that were able to let us connect with each other in a different way, and we all created some type of memories with each other, whether it's small, whether it was something emotional, whether it was funny. We all have these things with each other that we remember, whether it's our PFPs or our names, like Soggy and his name, and like all these different things. It's because of the community. And whether it's because we just became accustomed to it and used to it, I feel like we wouldn't have given each other that time of day or bothered to like get to know each other if it wasn't for the community and how it is. I feel like if it wasn't for that, like a lot of us, it's like you said, the internet, it's a lot of, it's still, there's many weirdos out there. So before that, I became part of the VeeFriends community. I always looked at it like, these are people I don't know from a hole in the wall. Why are they going to give a shit about me? And why should I give a shit about them? Or why should I share so much and be, willing to be as open as I am with them and share my personal life and what I'm going through and who I am or where I'm from, like with these people who I don't know? Are they going to do the same? Are they going to judge me? Or that? And we started realizing, or at least I started realizing, that it's nothing like that. Like, these people are not judgmental. They really don't care about what you have going on. It's more of, you get what you give. You know what I mean? If you're real, if you're upfront and you're honest, you get that same thing back. And if you're an asshole, people just don't waste their time and feed you any fuel. They just let you burn out on yourself, which is something that I really love about this community. Like you said, a lot of people got weeded out of it, whether it was from the bull run and people just coming in just because they wanted to make a profit, or whether it was because people came in and they actually wanted to make connections and just really be around other like-minded people. I feel like the whole bull run and VeeFriends and VCon and all those things, the more and more things and opportunities that we get to actually meet each other and see each other, the more harder it is for you to fake the funk like you're something you're not. And I think that a lot of people see through all that bullshit, which is something that I really like about the community, and which is what I want to get into the next question. Like, what is it about the VeeFriends community that got you hooked? Besides for Gary Vee and everything and the NFT and blockchain and stuff, what was it that really got you into it so much that made you want like you said, you wanted your piece of it. You wanted to be part of it. You wanted to be in that journey and document your stuff. But what was it that made you really want to just focus on the V Fam network, or just make it V Friends anything, instead of just making it the Mercer Show, or keeping your after school podcast? Like, what was it that really made you take that pivot to that direction?
So I think early, yeah, it's a good question. So Gary, and you're exactly right. Like Gary has the front face as being phased out, um, from being the guy for V Friends, more rapidly as we go. So, but like so many people here, especially in the early days, Gary was the one that got you in. Um, I connected with the vision. I listened I'm a listener, regardless of what Chell says. I I listen, I listen a lot. I can work on my listening in some situations, but um, you know, it was very clear what he was saying. I'm building this stuff out. This is going to be my Disney, and I'm going to build out these characters. I saw that as an educator. I saw that as a parent. And the more things started to happen, he's famous for saying, like, watch what I do, not what I say. And just what he was doing, like more light bulbs are going off on that side. And in the community standpoint, it was predominantly Discord, which I didn't go in a lot. There was just a lot there.
Yeah.
There's a lot there. I would go in for giveaways and stuff. But, when Spaces started, so there was a lot of generosity happening, though, in the Discord. And when Spaces started, Jeremy, and I don't think, I try to give him flowers whenever I can. I don't think Jeremy gets enough credit for what he did. He, from the get, started being the guy documenting V Friends. And we would learn everything through Jeremy's. He would break things down. He would, whether it be technical things from the blockchain, or just V Friends, or like connect pieces for us, helping onboard people. He did a fantastic job. So he was like him and others, but he in my eyes stood out as the guy.
I agree.
Just the person that, he was the bar for how you should talk to people, which worked for me because I'm a soft spoken. I think of myself as a nice guy, whatever. So like I was just attracted to it. And I didn't really have, like I said, I couldn't afford a V1. So I didn't have skin in the game. I didn't overpay for anything. I was just there watching, learning, and enjoying what was happening. And essentially the more I stayed, the more I wanted in. And, obviously we see how fast they're building. I just wanted to document. And, yeah, I'm still doing it. And I just see the vision, and I just see where it's going, and I know how it's going. I know how bad the world needs it.
Yeah.
I know how bad the world needs these characters to lean on and to be put on a pedestal. We talk about kids all the time, and I think we talk about couples. I think in 10 years we're going to look up, and all the adults we see in the community are going to be from their kids consuming the content.
100%.
Parents are going to be there just by association.
100%.
That's what the V Fam is going to be made up of predominantly. But I just believe in the messaging. So yeah, I just got more conviction by the day. Give or take a few roller coasters of just not being able to give it any time.
No, I hear you. And I was the same way too when it came to the Discord and everything. I used to be in there 24/7 when it first started, and then it just slowly, not even slowly, that's a lie. It very quickly became very overwhelming. There was always way too much going on in there. And it just got to the point where if you weren't upset that you missed the giveaway and an opportunity to get something, you would feel bad because you wouldn't be able to show up for everyone and everything that they were doing. and it was just way too much information or too much going on at once that I literally backed off. I used to get really bad anxiety. I would wake up and the first thing I would do is check the Discord and read and just scroll through all the stuff that I missed the day before, because I was scared that I was going to miss something that was like really important, like related to the VeeFriends community or something. And I didn't want to be the guy that was either the last to know or the one who missed out. So I agree with you on that when it comes to the Discord thing, that I literally I don't even go in there no more. The spaces, Jeremy and what he was doing with spaces and 1:37 p.m. and all those stuff and the POAPs and everything that they were doing really inspired me. I when I first got into their spaces and I started better understanding what was going on and the possibilities of what you could create and what people can do and how they can connect through that, I started trying it out myself also. So if it wasn't for Jeremy, I wouldn't have been inspired to do that myself, honestly. So I agree with you that too. I really feel like Jeremy doesn't get enough credit. I feel like he was the first one who did a lot of things in the beginning of when the community was still premature and we were just growing and starting. And he was like a good example, like you said, of someone who literally in the beginning he wasn't getting paid for nothing. He was doing a lot of stuff for free, everything for free mostly. And with that, he was still talking to everybody as if he was getting paid for it. And that's one thing that I really admired about him, that he always spoke with respect. He always gave you the time. He never rushed you because he finished talking to someone for 3 hours and then you were next up, and he wouldn't rush you. He would sit there and be patient with you and everything. And that was something that I wanted to be able to do. That I wanted to be able not to be bothered or feel stressed or feel rushed. And it's even like I said, I see your podcast also as well, and the way that you go about things, I get inspired by that because I've never really had that around in my life personally, in the real world. So that I was slowly being introduced to that through the VeeFriends community and seeing that existed. That was a real big thing to me, honestly. Could you
when I got Jeremy on the podcast, Jeremy was number 7 on VFam sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking back, I don't think I was more excited for any other person to say yes than when Jeremy was going to be number 7, just because I knew how much of a fixture he was in this whole beginning era. And I was just so pumped that he was going to be on.
So would you say that's a memorable moment of your journey in this podcast, I mean, of podcasting? And also, could you share another memorable moment of the VeeFriends, of your experience in the VeeFriends community?
As far as my podcast, or as far as
from both? If you could share one of your memorable moments in the beginning stages of your podcasting, as well as a memorable moment of being a part of the VeeFriends community.
Yeah, I mean, the getting him was cool, I think. And I said this a couple times, but when Tyler Dowdle, and shout out to T Dowds, when Tyler Dowdle, who at the time was running the social media manager for them, he was the first one on the team to say yes, which was huge, because that was the first time where it was like, all right, it's this guy from the community not talking to the community, like he's crossing over to talk about the team, or to the team about this thing that we're doing. So that kind of gave me a little street credit. And then at some point, and I don't think I talked about this, but at some point I mentioned that Gary was screaming, do the podcast, write on LinkedIn, and I did both. So I wrote a couple LinkedIn articles, and not even many, like 2 or 3. But one was why Web3 was a perfect place for teachers to get a job, because I was a former teacher looking for a job. So I wrote a decent article, and used it as just something that people would look at when I was applying for jobs, to know that I could put a couple sentences together. And I don't remember how, but Ezra, who now works for VeeFriends, he was at 1:37 p.m.
Yes.
Ezra put me on, and he got me what I thought was an interview at 1:37 p.m. with the NFT editor at the time, Erica Lee, set up a meeting, and I met Ezra in person at NFT NYC when I popped in for a hot second, and just to put in some FaceTime. And I thought I was going for an interview, and it was like, okay, you can write for 137 now as a freelance. And I was like, holy shit.
Nice.
So now I got to like brand myself as a 137 guy. I got to do some interviews, cool interviews, and do things there. But from that point on, I was just looked at differently. That's how, and in comes my Web3 jobs. And once you get one, you do the other. Oh, you're 1:37 p.m. So I was like I was in the club, so to speak.
Yep.
Even though I wasn't there full time. So that was a huge moment. Now I'm 137 and I'm doing this VFriends podcast. So people, I imagine that people just looked at me differently. So that was a huge moment. And then when Andy came on, Andy said yes. Andy did an AMA, and I said, do you want to come on? He said yes. And that was big. And all through the time, I imagined that in the background, I'm not scratching for alpha. I don't give a fuck what the treasure chest is going to be. Like, you know what I mean?
I hear you.
I'm just documenting this thing. I'm trying to be myself and get them to be comfortable too.
100%.
And these guys work super hard. Like they're trying to get a little spotlight too, like everyone, like, and get acknowledgement.
Yeah.
So, why not? That whole Vayner ecosystem, like they work really hard.
Yes, they do.
And we just kind of expect all this shit to come out, like all these collabs, but like it takes a ton of work.
Yes.
A ton of work. And it was a very small team for a long time, and it still is a very small team, and they're doing big things. So I think I think they appreciate the acknowledgement and is part of the story. And so getting Andy, and I just showed up to all of these things, and whenever I could go IRL and meet people, like that's my number one piece of advice. Like if you have an opportunity to go IRL, go, because every time I've gone to an IRL event, I've gotten an interview, or I had the conversation to set up the interview. And I've infiltrated. They know who I am now enough, and I've just built up some equity and street credit. And I just got Gary to say yes, which
yes,
was like one of the big gets. Like that's the pivotal moment.
Yes, man. Congratulations on that also as well.
So yeah, and that's coming from tremendous community support. But I had the head of his brand on. I had Tyler, who's an amazing dude and who's in his circle. I've had D-Rock, Andy, Rips, all these guys and closest to him to say yes and come on, and I've done a good job, I guess.
Yes, you have.
Enough for the next person to say yes. So yeah, they've all just been a series of awesome moments.
I love that, man. And I have to say you're doing great. I love it. Like I said, I keep looking at your stuff as an example of how to better execute these things, how to better carry myself. And I learn a lot from you and from many other people in the community. And it's like you're saying, everyone wants their time to shine. Everyone wants their spotlight or their story to be told. And I strongly believe that also, which is another reason why I do this too, just to have people see a little bit behind the scenes. Everyone just thinks it's all right, we set this up, we did it, and it's easy, let's go. And they forget that everyone starts at zero. We all don't have all these amazing things going off right off the bat. We all don't know what we're doing right off the bat, and we all don't know how to use all this technology. Like it was today it was like a little bit of a mission getting these things started and set up, but it's things that we just roll with and we adapt, and we just, it becomes second nature after some time, and it becomes nothing. It's just like going right back to those days where we're going to a stranger's house and you're trying to pitch them something in their own living room. You're in someone else's house getting them to buy something from you, and it's like, when you think about it like that, it's like, what the hell? Like, who the hell are you to come in my house and tell me, yo, buy this, you need it? It's like, what? Like, you came to me, like, you know? So it's crazy when you think about it like that, or when you say you just started your podcast and, you know, you went from just having a whiteboard and all this stuff and having it be simple, and then you actually have the person who's running VeeFriends, and then the actual creator of VeeFriends, Gary Vaynerchuk, who's literally making 100 pieces of content a day. Like, it's crazy to see how you go from something that you think isn't that big, or you question what it's going to be taken as, or how serious people are going to take it. And then when you start realizing you have, like, you're gonna have Gary Vaynerchuk on your fucking podcast, bro. Like, that's a big thing. No one can. It's like me, and I remember the day he started following me, and I used to brag about, like, yeah, he hits me up and all this. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I never would have thought it. And then you don't think that you would have the opportunity to meet the person, and then when you meet him, you don't know what to say, because, you know, he makes so much stuff that you feel so much a part of his life that you feel like you have to catch him up on everything you have going on. And then you forget that there's like a million other people in the line behind you. And all you have is like 3 to 5 minutes to try and put like 3 or 4 years into, like, you know, this small little thing of saying thank you to him and trying to show like your appreciation. And it's not something that should be overlooked. You know, I congratulate you on that. It's a big thing. It's a big thing. I think you're doing great. I love what you're doing. And it's not easy, man, especially when one, you're being a teacher, so you got to deal with kids every day, and you never know how kids are going to act, especially nowadays. Or you have to deal with their parents, or, you know, just with the way that society is, and Lord knows what's going on, or, you know, people having their differences and speaking out loud, whether it's being posted online or whether it's being said out loud to each other in person. And you have to adapt to all that, and you have to stay neutral. And it's hard to do that, especially when you have your own point of views and your own reasons for doing things. It's not easy. You're a dad. You have your own kids to worry about. You have a wife that you have to make sure that you're there for you, and you're supporting. So it's a lot of things that you have to balance and juggle that a lot of people don't tend to think about. And then at the same time, when you're free time, you're listening to other people and their story, and you're trying to be supportive to them too. So it's not easy. It's not something that's overlooked, you know. What I want to ask you is, in regards to all that, how do you balance hosting your podcast and live streaming with other aspects of your life? You know, being a husband, being a father, being a teacher, having a job. You know, how do you find a way to balance all those things?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge. You know, if Chels is not who she is, I'm not able to do it, at least as smoothly as possible. She is a a rock star um, mom. She's a rock star wife, and you know, when I'm doing a podcast, like, and it's the kids aren't down, and most of the time they're not down, like, she's wrangling, you know, doing whatever she can so the noise is down, like little stuff like that, you know, just being supportive. So like that's first and foremost. um you know, she is a huge part of the process behind the scenes. So um there's that. And after that, it's just prioritizing. It's just prioritizing, like just making VFam sessions a priority. You know, so you know, like I said, I started some other side things, things I want not to be a side thing, and eventually the other thing. So like the focus hasn't been on that. It's been on like, okay, let's focus, let's double down. Like, how can we make the show better? How can we get so and so on? You know, what do I need to do? And it's not like a cut and dry thing like XYZ, and then like I'll have this person on, or XYZ, and I'll, you know, have this Twitch thing. It's just kind of building the brand. But what I will say is, and this sounds kind of cliche, but like the VFam, I've really owned the VFam thing recently. And you know, before I thought I felt, you know, VFam and VFriends are kind of one in the same, but like the people that have been so supportive, like the people that have been in my DMs supporting, and I know you've been following me early on, and I appreciate you for that. Um, but like the support like really helps keep it front and center, and drives me, and just the people that continuously showing up. And when you have that like community of people showing up, which is like 85%, like how do you make it work? You just kind of show up. And the people that keep on showing up, the you and the Toms and Jays and the Chelseas and the Soggies and the Anns and the teacher Katies and the everybody, the Jermies, like from history, from before today, and the people that are just not even in, but they're going to be a household name in our world in 6 weeks.
Yes.
Like that's a driver for me. So I really own this community aspect of it. Before it was just like, yeah, the community's cool, but now like we're really seeing like arcs of people. We're really seeing like getting to learn people. Like businesses are forming, friendships are forming, in this parallel timeline. So like I'm just like here for that more and more. So like, the Gary thing used to be like, I can't wait to get Gary. And I don't get me wrong, like it's fucking huge. Like I'm
Yep.
super happy about it. But at the same time, it's like he's just another guy. Like he's the most important guy. Like he's gonna have the most answers,
Yep.
and fill in the most blanks. But like the VFam thing, I'm really starting to own more and more. And not to be like I'm not like a front and center person. Um, if you know me, you wouldn't, maybe if like you just catch a clip of like the dating game or something, it doesn't appear like that way. But I like I said, I did nothing but listen for the first 2 years, and like even still, I just let other people talk most of the time. So I'm really on the VFam. I really am. I just it's a big driver.
What would you say, or you have any advice that you would give for anybody else who's inspired or would like to start their own podcast or would like to branch out and start their own business, or just take that step forward to doing something that they're passionate about? What would be your advice based off your experience on what helped you move forward on giving it a shot and trying and setting up and hitting record for the first time? What was your like big thing that said, you know what, it's today's the day? And what was it that really got you to do it? Like, did you find it difficult to really start? Did you hold back at all? Did you overthink it? Or was it something that it was just like, you know what, whatever, I'm just gonna do it and go?
At the beginning, it was I'm just gonna do it and go. But I also had a vision. Like I visioned the book very early on, so I knew the kinds of places that I wanted to go as far as themes, and those have evolved, and some have been the same. But the sense of community is a big one. Um, so to answer the question about advice, you got to just pick something you like, because at the end of the day, like pretend no one ever listens, and we both know that that's the case at the beginning. um you know it might just be you. Like do it for yourself, right? If there's a project you want to work on, like write a book, you can just make the podcast a part of it and just keep that as the end game, and work a podcast into it or around it. But make it something you want to do. um you know Obviously we want to give value, but at the same time, if it's not serving you, and your whole purpose is to serve everyone else, like you're going to end up being depleted, and you're not going to be there for yourself or anyone else in the
True.
long run. So you gotta it's that kind of thing where you got to put your own mask on first, your own air mask or oxygen mask, whatever,
Yeah, I hear you.
before you do everyone else. So like make it something that you actually want to do, um and not like the cliche thing, like and AI podcasts are popping up all over.
Yeah.
And 18 months ago, everyone had an NFT podcast.
Yo.
So like, what do you want to do? What do you want to talk about? And for me, this is just a nice mixture. It's a nice concoction of things I want to talk about with. I like talking about VeeFriends. I like hearing people's stories. I love origin stories. So I have that, then VeeFriends, and then whatever niche that they're into. And it's cool to learn about people. And if I want to change directions or I don't want to talk to someone, I don't have to talk to them.
100%.
So like you're the boss. So uh it's a very good exercise, I think, for someone to try.
That's true. Yeah, I agree with you. In all honesty, through the conversations that I've had, I've come to some realizations on why I think or act the way that I do. And to be honest with you, like I don't really talk to many people in person in real life. It's just the way that it is. It's like you mentioned earlier. If the people that weren't serving me in my life, I grew apart from, and it was something that I was holding on to for so long because for a while I was just serving other people. I was always the one that was there for them and giving them advice and hearing them out. But whenever it came time that I needed that, no one was around. Or if I would try to share something with someone, it was just always like, oh, don't worry, you'll be all right. And it's like you can kind of see, it's like you mentioned before, you can tell when people are really listening and they pay attention to things by the way that they speak and they mention certain things. And you can also tell the people that really just don't care and aren't paying attention and are just yes men. They're just like, yeah, you got this, all right, cool, it's nice, whatever. And really they don't care. And it's nice to be a part of a community that they're actually trying. They may not be there all the time, they may not always answer right away, but they always do take the time that when they can, they're there, they listen, and they do give you the time of day, and they do give you some type of valuable information in the sense of something that you can use in a productive way to move forward. And I know that it's hard to find those people, or hard to be patient with people in the sense of giving them the time to actually express themselves in that way. So I agree with you in that it takes finding those people and also making sure it's something that you want to do and not just doing it to do it because you feel like you're going to get a certain reaction. Because at the end of the day, when you don't get what you're expecting, it's very disappointing. And then you notice that you've been putting in a lot of time and effort, that's something that's really pointless. And sometimes if you don't notice that right away and you don't change that, you end up stuck wasting a lot of time and energy on something that's going nowhere. And then you're left regretting stuff and you start blaming someone else when really it's on you. You didn't take the time to really self-analyze and tell yourself like, well, why are you doing this? What's your why? What's motivating you? What's keeping you here? And what's your real goal out of all this? So the fact that you're actually interested in that, and it shows, like, I don't think anyone would go through the hassle of putting together a trivia show or a dating show or setting out forms and hitting people up and following up with it if it wasn't something they actually really cared about. So I know where you're coming from that. Also, it's something that it shows in your work and how you present yourself. How do you see the VeeFriends community evolving in the future, as well as how do you see your podcast evolving? Like, where do you see all of this leading to?
Well, I think the community is just going to get larger. I think it'll break off into different niches, and I think there'll be more as the brand gets bigger. There's just going to be more consumers, obviously, people that when this thing comes out on YouTube, there's going to be a lot more brand awareness that might uh, you know, increase sales in a lot of ways and a lot of verticals, but not necessarily dramatically impact the amount of people in our community, like locked in as people that are tuning in, if that makes any sense. But obviously, there's going to be a correlation. Like people are going to find cards, people are going to find, a podcast maybe when they type in VeeFriends in YouTube and be like, what is this thing? And maybe they'll see a video that gets them hooked. So the community is going to grow. I think more niches will break off. As far as the podcast, yeah, I'm trying to in a way diversify by doing more fun things. I think now I'm in kind of an experimental mode to see kind of what works, what people like, because I have I have 3 dozen ideas of like shows that I would love to do, but at the same time, it's like it does take a lot of work to put together a good show. And I'm not in the business of like just saying, okay, we're talking about whatever tonight and having it be like not worth people's time. When people tune in, I want to be prepared. I want people to enjoy themselves. So as far as how it's evolving, I'm not sure what the the programming is on the network, but I the VFAM sessions, VFAM network brand, I want to have more, kinds of content that show the community, that highlight the community, versus just the way it does in the podcast.
I hear you.
And that's probably just the way I feel inside. It's going to be more perhaps 50-50 entertaining and educating, or even more like 70-30 with entertaining first, just because it's been so fun.
I hear you. And you mentioned community. What role do you think the community plays in the success of the content that you're creating for your podcast and yourself?
What role does the community play? I mean, if the community doesn't the community doesn't tune in, then it's just there to take up gigs
I
on
hear
a
you.
server.
I hear you.
So, uh putting my foot on the gas as far as content is something that I'm still kind of feeling out. It's a bandwidth issue, it's an attention issue. Um, you know, I would love if doing the VFAM was my. I said this to Chelsea the other day. I've said it a lot, but like if doing running the VFAM network and my podcast, and just if that was my full time job and I got paid for it, like it'd be the ultimate, because I enjoy doing it that much. I'm just in a like everyone, you need to bring in the bacon from somewhere.
Yep.
So I'm still in that place of seeing, how this is all going to work. And, pieces, I trust the process. The process hasn't failed me. So I'm in it. But yeah, the community is everything. The community is everything. And I am so grateful for the PRs, for the savvies. I'm hesitant to start listing names, because you know I there's so many and I don't want to leave anyone out. But in general, it's going back to the start of podcast thing. It's like, what better place to start a podcast with a group of people that are so supportive. And
100%.
if they're not, like, they just kind of get sick of it, like, call it a cult and move on.
Getcha. Yeah, and how do you prioritize and manage your time efficiently between all the different projects and all the stuff that you have going on? Like, how do you decide on what's first, what's second? Like, how do you go about that? Especially, like we mentioned, you're a teacher, you have your regular job, you have the stuff that you have to deal with at home as a father, as a husband, and then you have your podcasting and everything that you're doing and being a part of the community and whatnot. Like, how do you go about prioritizing all those things?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm the best. I don't know if I'm the textbook answer for this, but I just do like whatever is the most important at the time, to be honest. Like, I'm not the best at like finances and budgeting, and if it gets to the end of the month and I'm like, oh shit, like we need to pull in $1,600 right now, or $200 or whatever. I'm like, all right, let's get to eBay, let's start hustling, so that becomes a priority. If I'm feeling hot off of a great interview, or just having a nice VFAM string of days, then I'm like, all right, let's get the content going. Let's get some more people lined up. I've been on the podcast front, I have things pretty much booked out for a while, which is nice to front load that. But again, that was like a mini season I'm in where I prioritized it and did that. So I'm all over the place. I'm a squirrel brain. I talked about this with Ryan. I'm definitely undiagnosed ADHD. So I'm not regimented. I have like little regiments within a certain thing, like how I do certain activities. But as far as prioritizing my time, I'm all over the place. If the kids are having a rough week or Chelsea's having a rough week, like that's where my attention goes. So I wish I had a better answer. Hopefully someone does have a better answer that I could learn from, but it's just wherever the moment is, whatever I'm feeling, like that's where I'm going.
No, I hear you. I think that's a lot of us. I think a lot of us are like that, especially a lot of creative people. I think we're all scatterbrained, and we have like a million ideas a second, and we want to do everything and take over the world all at once. So it does get pretty hard to prioritize what we're gonna do first. Especially when you got so much ambition of wanting to do things, and then you want to do it the right way, and you want to give everyone the proper respect and their time, and so I agree with you. It is kind of difficult to balance it, but I think that's what a lot of people, I think we just take whatever comes, and we take it one thing at a time, and we try our best. That's all we could do, is just do our best, and go with the flow of things and try to
Yeah.
adapt the best we can along the way. So, before we get out of here, and I want to be respectful of your time. I know you're a dad. I know you're a husband. It's a Monday, so I know you got a lot of stuff to do, and I'm pretty sure Chels is probably going crazy mad at me because I stole you away for so long. But I wanted to ask you, what are some key lessons that you've learned from your experience, from not only starting your own businesses and being a teacher, and all the conversations you had on the podcast and creating your own stuff and doing your content, but also being a husband, being a father, and the combination of all that together? What are some key things that you feel have helped you either adapt or grow as a person, as a content creator, as a businessman, as a husband? What are some things that you feel are key to your development and evolving as a person, that you feel has come from all of these experiences?
That's a lot. That's a lot there. Well, let me start from the top down. We are had a lot of unexpected deaths in my life. A stepbrother uh, dropped dead at 17 with a heart thing. My sister's longtime boyfriend had a tragic accident where he was killed. Uh, my dad went in for surgery and never came out. So my framework of like life is short. Life is like, so to like spend time doing anything that like and that goes back to the teaching thing, like to spend like investing so much precious time when not doing something that you really care about for any amount of time, like has made less and less sense to me as I get older. Um, so like that has been a huge framework. Like change your if you're not happy, change your circumstances, because like any day could be your last. Like any moment could be your last. So that's the truth. And that's kind of like my underlying way I like to think and make decisions. As far as other lessons, try try not to make the same mistake twice. Like
I hear
and
you.
like you talk to a lot of smart people. It's like, all right, you make a mistake once. Like I make a lot of mistakes multiple times in different ways, and I'm like, oh shit, like I did that again. So try to learn from your mistakes. I need to listen to if you are someone that has a significant other, they're usually um, very wise. Anyone listening to this is probably smart and picked someone that is very sensible to be your significant other, and you pick them for a reason. So listen to them. That's a lesson. And just, I mean, this is kind of piggybacking my first answer, but just like spend, and maybe a theme of everything we're talking about, just do what you want to do. Like, and Gary preaches all this all the time. Like, we're living this internet age. Like, just do what you want to do, and we see people doing it. Like, people are fucking hanging out every night just watching people pull cards. Like, it's fun. It's like what they want to be doing, and if you can't do that, like, go flip something. Or I'm just thinking about me, but like, there's so much opportunity, and you just kind of need to figure out what that is. And sometimes it's hard to figure out what you are into, or what you should be doing. Like, it's really fucking hard. I work at it all the time. Like, I'm still figuring shit out, but like, I just spend more time doing things that make me feel good and slash that I want to do than not. If that makes any sense. And we'll figure it out. But yeah, life is short.
I agree with you.
I
agree with you. Well, I wanted to say thank you, Rob. I really appreciate you taking the time to stop by and to share your story, and to just basically, for what you're doing. I really enjoy what you're doing with the podcast. I really, really love the trivias. I'm really looking forward to the next dating show. If you're going to have one, you gotta let me know.
There'll be another.
But I love all that. Before we get out of here, is there anything that you're working on right now, or anything that you have coming up besides, of course, the Gary Vaynerchuk interview? Which do you have a date for that yet, or is that after VCon, pre-VCon, or?
It's gonna be post VCon. No dates are locked in, but we'll get it across the finish line. When
do you have anything else that you're working on right now that you want to share and you want to let us know about?
Man,
are you allowed to tell us anything?
No, I'm hesitating because it would blow your mind to know all of the ideas and the amount of things that I ideate on, excuse me, that on a daily basis, not even like a weekly basis, but like, my mind is always going, and I'm always like, have things ready to pull the trigger on. So I'm gonna right now I'm gonna say no, but I feel like this summer you might be seeing a new podcast from me. I might get the after school back out, and have VFam sessions going now that I have a little flow here. And then as I figure out more of a flow with the VFam network and how that's going to work from a logistic standpoint, I'm gonna pick up another podcast too. So that's what I'll share right now. But yeah, like I said, I'm very, very VFam heavy right now. And that's kind of be the theme for 2024, and continuing to talk to people in the community and just hear document their stories. But listen, like, you're doing a fantastic job.
I appreciate that.
You're doing it, man. Like, just showing up is the thing. Forget the logo. Like I don't even know what's back here. I don't. Sometimes I'm watching a video back, I'm like, why is that like that? Or like, the camera wasn't even straight, or my mic wasn't even on for, a couple episodes ago. So like, just go. You're doing a fantastic job. Proud of you. So many people are proud of you. Just keep on going. Like, and to your point, it's not easy. It's not easy. So give yourself some flowers once in a while. And I appreciate you having me on and being patient and working with me.
No, I really appreciate all that you're saying, man. It does mean a lot, and keep doing what you're doing as well. I'm a fan. I love what you guys are doing. I'm a fan of you. I'm a fan of Charles. You guys give me hope, in all honesty, to find somebody that I can, accompany with me in this journey of not only just learning more about this community and where it's going to go in this space and all that stuff, but also just to learn more about myself and who I am as a person. And I'm very grateful, and I'm happy that I came across your content, that I came across you and Chels, and how you guys are it's like I said, it's given me hope. I used to think that it would be impossible to try to find someone who would be as interested in certain things like I am, and seeing you guys and how you are and how you both support each other and how far you guys have taken the things that you've created and what you're both doing, it's inspiring, and it keeps me hopeful. So I want to say thank you to you guys for being as open as you are about your relationship and what you're doing, and always sharing and always being willing to, talk to people and give your time, without a moment's hesitation. It really does mean a lot. I know many other people feel the same way too. Everyone in the community just loves you guys. You're doing great. I love what you're doing with your podcast and just everything in general, man. I'm a fan. And just thank you. Thank you for coming on and giving me the time of day, man. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Pierre. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody who tuned
Thanks
in.
everyone the chat. I didn't want to get
Yes, thanks, Sog. Thanks, Soggy. Thanks, Chels, for coming in. Bro Fit. Thank you, Nacho. Thank you. Who else? We got Tab Fro. Thank you, everybody who came in and showed some love. I really appreciate it. This has been Clocking Out. I'm PR, the King of Hearts. This is Rob Messer. And I love y'all. Stay safe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.